All right, welcome to another video. So you guys know me as the guy who's always trying to optimize my training, optimize your training, let you know what you should be doing in order to get your best gains. But there's something that I just see, I shouldn't say something, there's some things that I see people doing all the time that are actually killing their gains, not to steal from Athlete X. So we're gonna go over the 10 things that you might be doing that are actually killing your gains or killing your progress in the gym. Number one, not standardizing your form before you start going very heavy. So I'll see a lot of people, they'll be like, well, I can do this weight, and they'll get onto a machine, and they'll be like, and they're just like going crazy at it, Sam Sulek style. No, Sam's actually a little bit more controlled than people give him credit for, but they'll just go at an exercise and it'll be too heavy for them, and they're just going crazy before they've actually figured out what good technique looks like on that exercise. So what I would say is start very light, figure out what the form is that you want on a machine, and then start loading up the weight. So this is an example that I actually went with in my live the other day. I talked with people and they were saying that my form, my range of motion wasn't good. They were saying it was too short. And it was actually on an exercise that was a low row. So for example, this is what it might look like, right? So if I'm doing this exercise, the handles aren't set where I want them to, but let's say I was doing this exercise. What I was doing was I was doing a row and I was pulling back to about here, right? And they were like, that's bad range of motion, that's bad range of motion.
It's a very, very bad idea.
The problem is, you have to know what you're actually trying to accomplish. So could I have pulled back to here? Yes, but at that point, what am I doing? At that point, I'm taking tension off of the back and putting more of it onto the rear delt. So what seems like not a full range of motion is actually the full range of motion for the intended purpose. So that's what I mean by standardizing your form. I'm not saying that you have to be like going these crazy stretches, crazy lengths, or like crazy contraction, like super far back. I'm saying figure out the exact purpose of your exercise before trying to load the weight on. Vice versa, number two, the mistake that I see people making is going too light. So what they do is they get on an exercise like this and they say, all right, well, I want to make sure I have good form and good range of motion. So I'm going to do this. And it's like, this is how I'm going to perform the exercise. Like, they go so light in order to make sure that they can get through that entire range of motion. They never actually push the muscle groups that they're trying to push. So you got to find that nice balance, right? You got to push the weight up, but not so far that you can't keep good form. So that covers the first two. Number three, I should get a visual for this. Mistake number three is not using straps, or more specifically, I should say, not using straps properly. So I'm going to teach you guys how to use straps. When you want to use a strap, what you want to do is you want the strap to go opposite of the way that you're gripping. I've seen people, like they get straps and they're like, I don't feel it making a difference, and they tie it up like this. It's like, well, yeah, that's not making a difference because this is just going to slide and you're still having to grip the bar. What you want to do is you want it to go opposite so that as the bar could possibly roll out of your finger, the strap is holding it in place. So you go opposite of it. And then what you want to do, and this is another part people miss out on, is you want to make sure that it is tight. It should be like squeezing the blood out of your hand.
I'm kind of a tough guy.
If it's not squeezing the blood out of your hand and there's too much play, this is not really doing much for you. So make sure that you've got it really tight gripping so that if you wanted to, while performing this exercise, you could almost let go of the bar. You could almost feel it with like a finger. And that's a really good way to see if you've got your straps on properly is I don't even have to hold it with my full hands. If you want to bring it up to my hand here, if I wanted to, I can do this, I can do this, and it's still going, like you can see it's pulling on my wrist. And that's how you want to do it, so that everything is pulling through the wrist. It's not about your grip, it's all about pulling through the wrist. So first off, get the straps, and second off, use them right. Number four, redundant exercises. I'll see people, they'll be like, yeah, this is my back workout. They're like, I go and I do pull downs. Do my pull downs, I do this for 3 or 4 sets. My next exercise is pull up, and I do this for 3 or 4 sets. And I'm like, that's the exact same move. You're working the exact same muscle groups and you're doing it for 8 sets. There's just no need for that. So make sure that when you're doing your exercises, you know what the purpose of them is. When I see people doing a chest workout and they've got 3 different incline presses, I'm like, what is the purpose of that? That makes no sense. Pick one and do it for the number of sets that you need to for that workout. If you want to throw in a second one just for a set, sure, I guess, if you just like the variety. But in the end, you should be picking the one that works best for your structure, the one that works best in your program, progress that exercise, and don't worry about doing a whole bunch of exercises for the exact same muscle group. Which leads me into the next point, which is changing your exercise selection too often. So if I'm trying to get really good at a frontal plane pull, and I go into the gym and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do a pull down, and I do that the first week. And then the second week, I go in and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do a pull up, and I do that. And then the next week, I go in and then I say, okay, I'm gonna go find this, a diverging plane pull. It's like, give your body time to adapt to the exercise that you're doing, because there's also neurological adaptations that you have to make. And when you're making those neurological adaptations, that's going to allow you then to progressively overload the movement. So if you're taking and saying, I'm just gonna do a different movement each time, even though they are working the same muscle groups, they're working them in slightly different fashions, or you're moving in a slightly different manner, so maybe you're not able to progress it the way that you should. Not saying you can never change it, but you definitely want to keep staples in there so you can continue to progressively overload them throughout time. Number 5 is not resting long enough. Every single day, I get people in my live asking me, Joel, how long should I be resting between sets? Actually, they say TNF. But how long should I be resting between sets? I'm like, this is not a set answer, okay? Yes, we can take a look and say, okay, literature has shown that somewhere between 2 to 3 minutes seems to be a really good time to rest. But I'm not gonna tell you guys 2 minutes, because there is no way I'm gonna go do a hard hack squat set and then 2 minutes later be ready to go again. It's just not happening. So do not give yourself an arbitrary amount of time. What you should be doing is make sure you're not going to too short. Don't go like 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, and then be like, yeah, I'm good to go, I'm good to go. Like, okay, give yourself a bit more time than that. But if you need a little bit more time, if you need 3 minutes, 3.5, 4, don't give yourself a set period of time unless you need to be in and out of the gym in a certain amount of time. Maybe then it makes sense to time it, but if you have the time to give yourself the time to recover, make sure your cardio is good, and then go for that next exercise and make sure you do a good hard set. Number 6, forcing yourself to do optimal exercises. I know this sounds crazy because it's like, oh, well, you're the Mr. Optimal. I don't like that term, and I don't like the way people apply it. But if there is an exercise that has been deemed as the most optimal, the best exercise ever, and you go to try it, and you don't like it, it doesn't feel good, it's off with your structure, do not force yourself to do it. There is always another option. If somebody says this exercise is the best exercise for this muscle group, and you try it and it feels absolutely terrible or not even great, and there's another exercise that you really like that is also a good exercise, do that exercise.
To be paid to do what you love. Ain't that the dream?
Do not force yourself to do something that does not fit you, either preference-wise or structure-wise. There is always another option. Number 7, progressive overload is killing your gains. I know that sounds crazy, but I mean it. Like, a lot of times people are so obsessed with getting that next rep or getting that next weight that they're like, let me show you. I'll show you something really simple right here, okay? Let's say this is my standardized form for a lat pull down. This is how I've standardized my form. Now, let's say I put it on a really heavy weight and I start saying, all right, let's go. And I go, sure, I might be able to, in my head, convince myself that I've been progressively overloading. I might be able to convince myself, well, that's a heavier weight than I'm doing. Therefore, I progressively overloaded. But the form was not the same. There was about this much difference in range of motion. So even though I was pulling it through, I wasn't pulling it through quite as far, I wasn't contracting as well, I wasn't letting down the eccentric as slowly, which means that that's not true progressive overload. Progressive overload is when you do the same exercise in the same manner and then increase in reps and weight. It is not about shortened range of motion and then getting more weight, more reps. You have to make sure the form is standardized in order for you to do progressive overload. And if you're just going for that extra rep, just going for that extra weight all the time, sometimes you're going to sacrifice your form and it's not actually progressive overload. And you are just convincing yourself in your head that you're doing something you're not. So that is when progressive overload can kill your gains. And that's why I honestly stopped logbooking. I'm so competitive that when I logbooked my workouts, I was always trying to go for that next rep, always trying to go for the next weight, and it made me sacrifice form just to say that my number was high. So if that's you, and you find yourself doing that, bring yourself back, get yourself collected, and make sure you're using good form before you actually start progressing the weight. And apparently, I did the same number twice, so this is number 9. Overthinking. No, sounds crazy coming from my platform because we're always talking through science, we're always talking through nuance, we're talking through all these crazy things.
Forget about what that word means.
Overthinking. This is why when people come onto my platform and say, how come so-and-so so big despite not being optimal, despite not doing everything right? I'm like, are they sleeping well? Yeah. Okay. Are they eating well? Yeah. Okay. Are they going to the gym consistently? Yeah. Okay. Are they going intense when they go to the gym? Yeah. Are they increasing the weight over time? Yeah. It's like, you're gonna grow. Okay? If you're doing those things, you're gonna grow. Yes, there is ways to optimize things, but if you're overthinking every single little detail, you can actually hold yourself back from making the true progress that you can make because you're always trying to find that next thing. That next silver bullet, it's gonna change everything. It's like, when if you just stayed with the thing that you were doing and you just did it consistently and got better at it, you'd get more growth than always trying to find this new thing that's gonna get all the gains that you weren't getting before. So, as much as we do like to think a lot on this platform, don't overthink your training and get yourself so stuck in this method of, I need something new that's gonna get me better results and to change everything. You do that too much and you'll actually keep yourself from progressing. So those are I said 10, but we're only gonna do 9 today. Those are the 9 things that people are doing in the gym consistently that are keeping them from getting their true potential. Get rid of some of those things, promise you, you'll start making more gains. See you, and I'm out.